SYS presents Adventures in Online Education.
Hello, friends. You're listening to SYS Presents Adventures in Online Education. I'm your host, Natalie Conway. Thanks for being here. If you are new to the podcast, first off, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. You're going to want to head over to aoepodcast.org and enter your info at the bottom of the page to start receiving the AOE newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter from me to you with a thought or two to inspire and encourage you throughout the year. All right. Let's get to today's episode. I have the pleasure of speaking with three amazing leaders from North Carolina Virtual, Dr. Rachel McBroom, Dr. Thomas Cooper III, and Dr. Chris Smith. Dr. Rachel McBroom is the Chief Academic Officer at NCVirtual and has experience in K-12 schools and higher education. Out of her 24 years of experience, 13 of those have involved online teaching and learning. As the mother of elementary and middle school students, you'll hear how passionate Rachel is about how online education can help provide expanded learning opportunities for all students. Dr. Thomas Cooper III is the Instructional Director at NCVirtual. He has experience in K-12 education as well, with just over a decade in the field serving from classroom teacher in North Carolina and in Kobe, Japan, to magnet STEM coordinator to administrator. Growing up in rural North Carolina, he is eager to share with you the resources and access that NCVirtual provides for all students, regardless of their zip code. And finally, Dr. Chris Smith serves as the Instructional Director at NCVirtual. He has experience in K-12 schools as well and higher education. He has been teaching online and training faculty in best practices for blended and online learning since 2012. He serves as National Accessibility Expert with Quality Matters and the Association for Educational Communications and Technology, or AECT. Today, Chris will share his passion for designing high-quality blended and online learning experience for learners of all ages. So, are you ready? Let's learn something new. Welcome, listeners. I am so excited today. I have three fantastic guests for you. I have three doctors in the house today. So we have Dr. Rachel McBroom with us, Dr. Thomas Cooper, and Dr. Chris Smith, all from the wonderful state of North Carolina. And they're going to talk to us today about what they're doing with virtual education statewide. So first off, thank you, all three of you, for coming today. I'm so appreciative of your time.
You're welcome.
Excited to be here.
Thanks for having us, Natalie.
Yay. So first thing, I am really curious, how do you three work together? I know you're all in administrative positions. What does that look like? Can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day or how you interact? And maybe we'll start with Rachel.
Sure. Yeah, it varies from day to day. Lots of instant messaging through Google Chat, emails, Zoom meetings, phone calls, text messages, whichever kind of communication method works in the moment. That we're working with our staff, our entire full-time staff, with the exception of about a half a dozen. Work from home. Of course, through the pandemic, we've all been from home and spread across the state. So we just use all sorts of electronic communication methods, and we're a Google Doc user, Google organization. So we do a lot of collaborative documents, spreadsheets, etc.
I love that. Google has been amazing, I feel, in the past few years, just for that collaboration and that real-time communication. That's pretty awesome. And you all are in North Carolina, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. I am sure listeners are super curious because when I discovered that you were presenting at DLAC coming up in February, I wanted to learn more before that even happened. So we know that some states are moving to a model which seems similar to what you're doing in North Carolina, which is creating a statewide public online program that all public schools in the state can access. according to your website, it says NCVPS is a supplemental program for all the public middle schools and high schools in the state. So you are not a virtual charter. I'm curious why you developed this program in the way that you did and how it looks on the student end. Can you tell us about the origin story of NCVirtual and what you're hoping to achieve for students in schools in your state? How does it all work?
Sure. Natalie, it really goes back to the early 2000s. We had multiple districts across the state of North Carolina that were beginning to dabble in online education. They were creating their own courses, finding that it was very expensive to create high quality courses.
It is.
And as that continued to happen, both local and state education leaders were beginning to be concerned about the consistency and the quality and just assuring, some certain level of quality assurance across those online experiences. So at that point, our state politicians got involved, and our state General Assembly created what was called the E-Learning Commission. And the E-Learning Commission was tasked with creating a statewide virtual program, of which North Carolina Virtual Public School was the result of that. And so we were actually created via legislation in around 2005. We opened our doors with our very first courses in the summer of 2007. And so 15 years later, we're still doing it. We've learned better ways to do it, and the technology has helped us change, definitely. But we're still here, and we still exist primarily for the same reason. We firmly believe that a child's zip code should not determine what access they have to educational opportunities or career opportunities post-secondary. And so we exist to make sure that no matter where a child lives in the state of North Carolina, through their school, they can partner with us to have access to a full catalog of high school courses, and we've now expanded into middle school courses as well. So that's kind of where we came from. Again, we're hoping to be part of the solution, working with our public schools in North Carolina, as well as our homeschool and our private schools. They may enroll their students with us as well, to provide those opportunities to students that allow them to be successful post-secondary, whether it's going the college route or going straight into career. And so that's really what is driving us. Students work through their schools. Their schools actually are the ones who enroll with us, so the student does not come directly and enroll.
Okay.
And so the school also is responsible for picking up and covering the cost for our operation to pay for our teachers as well.
So an individual student isn't going to enroll in NCVirtual, but their school is. And so is it sort of set up in the way that they've paid for seats ahead of time, maybe? And so they're able to enroll a certain number of kids per district or per school?
Yes, it's built into our state's funding formula, so they have an allotment that covers their enrollments with NCVPS.
Very cool. And Chris and Thomas, I'm curious about the instructional end, how that looks in terms of curriculum and teachers, all of that.
I'll let Chris talk about the curriculum side of it, and then I can talk about the teaching component.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, following along with what Rachel said, so with designing the program, one of the things that we've gone with is that we have a model where we hire highly qualified, certified North Carolina teachers to write our curriculum for our courses. So we do not focus on the use of a textbook. It's all done in-house. We've come up with a process for that. Now, we do have some electives, some of those in the middle school courses, and some where we've expanded a little bit, where we do use some third-party resources to kind of provide that course content for us in some of the higher need, hard to find areas, some of the computer sciences, different things like that. But for our core courses, we usually have a process that takes about a year from the time it starts till the time it ends, where we go through and determine which courses we want to either add as new courses or we want to revise from previous years. And so we do that through looking at a bunch of different data sets. We look at student performance. We send out surveys to our current teachers and find out what they have to say about the courses. If the standards have changed, that automatically means we need to revise the course to make sure that our courses continuously aligned to those standards. And then also just like requests from districts and across the state when new courses are needed for different reasons, which is why we've expanded, like Rachel said, into the middle school area, because we hadn't been doing that and that was addressed as a need. And so once we determine what those courses are going to be, We put out like a whole like application where teachers apply and interview, and then we use a dual process where we have some that are hired to write the content, others that are hired to review the content. And so we have detailed phases. It's a 4-phase process that they go through where they write content, review it. We have multiple levels of reviewers that look at it. A lot of that process is based off the Quality Matters organization. We are members of Quality Matters. We're somewhere now, that number keeps changing each day. I think we're up around the 70 course mark where we have 70 certified courses through Quality Matters. We do have the most out of all the K-12 organizations. And actually, we have more certified QM courses than any other educational institution in the state of North Carolina. So
Wow.
we are setting that precedence there. We use that process to design our courses. We start with a course outline where we have a certified teacher outline the course, where they come up with the module and lesson level objectives based off those state standards. So that alignment's there from the beginning. Then we design our assessments and then build the course content inside. And then I am one of 2 instructional designers with the organization. So we oversee, once that content's written, it's all written in the Google Docs that Rachel referred to. And then from there, my team kind of takes it and builds it in the technology. We create learning objects. We kind of make it that we add that engagement piece to it to where we get a final product, and then that's released for schools to be able to enroll students in those courses. And so that's how the design works, but we're constantly working with the instruction team to get their feedback from the teachers and from students too. It's an evolving process. And one of the things on top of Quality Matters that we focus in on is we really look at the accessibility piece and making sure that all of our course content meets accessibility standards. With that, we have, in North Carolina, we have 2 schools for the deaf, the Western and the Eastern School for the Deaf. We also have Governor Moorhead School for the Blind that's located in Raleigh. We've had students in cohorts go through all 3 of those schools, and we coordinate with them. I've gone personally to the School of the Blind multiple times to work with those students to get feedback from them as to what we need to do to change our courses. And as we get that feedback, we're constantly evolving our process. So we get that feedback, we change the course, and then it spreads out. So constantly getting more and more information from our students, their parents, the district leaders and teachers to evolve our course design process. But that's basically how it functions.
That's amazing. I love how much you both so far have spoken about surveys and feedback and being responsive to the needs of your community. And my special ed heart obviously is super happy to hear about your work with the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind as well. Thomas, what about the teacher side of things?
Sure. And so when they push out these programs onto Canvas and set up the courses, the students have access. Traditionally, our teachers will post announcements kind of guiding instruction, but we do it with an asynchronous model. We recommend pacing, we provide pacing, but we don't have those live office hours or lessons. The teachers call the students, they provide feedback through assignments and kind of guide the instruction that way and provide and support those supplements. But it's not your traditional, you sit down for an hour from 8 to 9 and meet with the teacher. And really, this is a benefit to a lot of our students who are traveling around the country pre-COVID times, doing other activities. It allows them to keep being participants in the activity while also getting that quality education from a highly qualified teacher on that end. And sort of like Chris said, we do have the check-ins with the teachers. We've got that specific feedback, but we offer courses anywhere from Math 6 all the way through AP Stats. We offer world languages, ASL, Japanese, German, Arabic, French, Spanish, Mandarin. We offer everything from biology all the way through marine and forensic sciences. And like Chris said, we also do offer some of those specific or non-traditional courses that maybe you won't get at your typical high school, which really is nice for our rural high schools who may not have the staff or may not have the abilities to offer an AP calculus class. But just because you live in the eastern part of the state or in the mountains of North Carolina, this allows you to still get that access to those courses to prep you for whatever adventures you want to take after high school.
Absolutely. That attention to equity and sharing resources and making everything available, regardless of zip code, like Rachel said at the top of the episode, I really appreciate that line of thought. So I am super impressed, and I think it's really awesome how you have told us about the program featuring a catalog of nationally recognized Quality Matters certified courses. That is amazing. And everything being fully aligned to standards. I love the idea that educators are creating the curriculum from scratch. That's what I have done in the past. That's what SYS education is all about, giving the authority to teachers and not necessarily a curriculum company to develop instruction that's going to be engaging for your students. I heard you talk about using Canvas as your LMS and that it's a mostly asynchronous process. I'm curious, sort of a little bit of the nuts and bolts, I guess. The teachers at NCVirtual are tracking progress. Are the students then getting a grade from NCVirtual, or are they getting a grade for and credit through their actual home school if they're at a public school? And then also, do they have as much time as they need to complete a course? Do they go at their own pace? And is it virtual the whole time, or are there any hybrid kind of courses?
Flexibility is really our key, right? Snow days, and when you serve students from the mountains all the way to the coast, North Carolina is a pretty big city. We've got 115 districts and LEAs. So when you've got that many, you're bound to have issues in one area or the other. And so we do allow the students a lot of flexibility with that. Our teachers are phenomenal with this. We've put in plans in place to help guide them as well so that we're standard across the board. We will provide the grade to the school, but ultimately the school owns the grade. They are the ones that transfers it into their system, and then they can do with that what they will. Similarly to that, the school picks the course they want the kids in, right? We don't necessarily set those parameters and prerequisites. If they feel the child is ready for that course, we provide the teacher, they provide and select where they want them to go.
That is really neat. And then does the student have as much time as they need to complete within a school year, or are there any limits?
Typically, no. We try to make sure they fit into that semester parameter, right? But again, flexibility, it's in a case-by-case situation. There's a lot of variables with that, but we've kind of given our teachers that green light to be flexible, allow them to give the students chances to master the material, because ultimately that's the goal, right? Student mastery, and preparing them so that they can take that next course when they're with us.
Awesome. I think there's always a hard balance there, isn't there? Especially online, where you want to have, okay, at some point we have to call it and this is done, but also you want to be flexible. That's a tough balance to strike. Go ahead, Rachel.
And Natalie, to that point, we try for most of our courses to offer a semester long version and a year long version. And that then puts the school and that student in the driver's seat to choose. They know the situation that child is facing in that particular year to choose whether a semester long version is more applicable or do they need that extended time. And then, as Thomas said earlier, of course, our teachers are going to flex within that time frame, but we do let them have that choice as much as possible to choose whether to compact it into half the year or the full year.
Fantastic. Your dedication to students' needs and to being responsive to both educators and the learners is really impressive. Do you offer hybrid courses as well, or are students, if they're taking an NCVirtual, is it fully online?
So we do have hybrid classes. We call them blended. We offer them in two primary programs. One is our intervention program that's rolled out most recently, and this was targeting the courses in North Carolina that at the time we were seeing as barriers to high school graduation. So courses like your Math 1, those grad requirements, that there were those kids who were on the cusp of success, but not quite being successful enough to pass it and stay on track to graduation. And so in partnership with our colleagues at the Department of Public Instruction, we redesigned those courses with some extensive interventions and supports built into them. And we now offer those in a blended format where a content licensed teacher from NCVirtual is paired up with a content licensed face to face teacher in the building, in the district. And so the two teachers together are partnering and modifying and supporting those students who were kind of on that cusp of success to help them overcome those barriers and stay on the track for graduation. Our other, and actually our largest enrolling program, is our program that it serves in North Carolina what we call students in our occupational course of study program. And so these are students that are identified with some learning exceptionalities that really are on a different pathway to graduation. And so we have blended courses and their core content that in that case pairs our content licensed teacher with a licensed exceptional children's teacher in the classroom. And those two teachers are partnering and working together to again modify the assignments and meet the needs of those specific students in that particular course.
That's fabulous. I am a special ed teacher by trade, and co-teaching and co-planning and collaborating has always just been so good for kids. And it's really exciting to hear that Though you are primarily a virtual program, you do have the flexibility and the resources to pair with those local teachers to really fully wrap around. Sometimes we use that phrase in Oregon, wrap around services, and make sure that there's a cohesive support for especially your most vulnerable students. That's really exciting. You three are doing fantastic work. We're going to take a quick break, and then after that, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the variety of programs and offerings you have. What's the one thing all online schools and programs struggle with? Student engagement and the ability to truly personalize interventions. How do we solve those problems? With the use of Admin Dash, a brand new Canvas LTI tool from SYS Education. Admin Dash allows online teachers to see a risk assessment score that proactively identifies students who may need more specialized attention or intervention, and offers a communication log that provides an outlet for complete transparency among teachers, admin, students, and families. At just 99 cents per student per year, and with no minimum price and no fees, you can't afford to not use Admin Dash. For more information about Admin Dash, contact sales at syseducation.org and start connecting proactively with your online learners. All right, welcome back, online teachers and educators and maybe students out there. We are talking to the team from NCVirtual, and I want to ask, all schools are trying to prepare students to be productive citizens, which can look really different depending on the individual student. Some students might want to go to college, others are entering the workforce, maybe starting a family, or joining one of the armed forces. If the goal is to prepare students to be successful in their lives outside of high school, whatever that might look like, what role does the Iwork speaker series play in that?
Sure. So, Natalie, the Iwork Speaker Series is actually one component of a larger initiative at NCVirtual called the Iwork at NCVirtual program. And we really started at that time with an emphasis on our career and technical ed programs. We, of course, were offering some standalone courses in the CTE arena, and we're trying to think about to expand upon our original mission of reaching all kids and thinking about students that may not have access to complete a full pathway or earn a credential at their local high school. Could we perhaps fill that gap for them? And as we brainstormed this, we began to realize that the part of it is also just awareness, being aware of what the career opportunities are that are out there. That if you're growing up, right, in a rural area where there's limited job opportunities, limited industry surrounding you, we still have an incredibly robust farming economy in North Carolina. So a lot of our schools and our students are surrounded by farmland and may not see as many other business and industry opportunities nearby in their day to day lives. And so we all grew up and have been part of where you'd have the local career day and you'd have the folks come in and talk about their career. And, it's fun and it's cool and it's interesting. But I have to say, this has been one of the benefits of the pandemic for us. We tried to get this speaker series up and off the ground right before the pandemic came along. And it was a little bit of a struggle because our business and industry partners were so used to that. I'm going to the school and I'm talking and I'm going to have my handouts and so on and so forth. But once the world kind of had to shut down, they began to embrace this idea of let's do a virtual field day or a virtual career day. And so that's really what our iWork series has become, is that we have a great partnership with the North Carolina Business Community for Education. That's an office that's run out of our governor's office. They've helped connect us to industry and business people across the entire state who are willing to come and do a virtual session. They allow us to record it, and we have these recordings posted not only on our website, but also within a system we use in North Carolina called the Career Navigator. And that's available to all public schools that teachers at any time can log in and access those resources. So if you can't catch our iWorks session for this speaker on the day that it's happening, you have access to that recording afterwards to share with your students when it fits with your curriculum and what you're teaching.
That is really cool, and that hits close to home for me. I grew up originally in a suburb of Boston in Massachusetts, but now live in Central Oregon, which is very rural. And Yeah, I witnessed that as well, where there are limited opportunities for work and for industry. And as the economy in the US in general changes, that affects those small towns a lot more directly. And so it's really cool to hear a state figuring that out and you all playing such a vital role in supporting that, again, that equity and that really proactive thinking. Like, hey, we need to do something to make sure that all the young people in our state are realizing that there are options because Rachel, you made such a good point about awareness. There is some minimal benefit, I'm sure, to that one day job fair kind of thing, but almost like PD for teachers, when you do that one and done PD, it doesn't really have a lasting effect. And the same thing with students. So if you can have this program that's constantly allowing educators and students to be more aware of the options, I think that has to be a good thing for your graduation rates and a good thing for your communities too. Awesome.
Well, no, Natalie, if you don't mind, I'll add one more thing to that
Please
from the
do.
curriculum side of things because it provides a specific example that we can talk about that course development and constant modification. Because as part of that larger Iwork program, we did have one of the cohorts of students that went through, we created a course, Workforce Ready, that's part of this larger Iwork program. And so we actually had a school from the Western School for the Deaf go through that course. And there were some modifications that need to be made for various reasons to the course content. And as a result, we were able to capture those modifications, and those are now loaded in the course master for anyone teaching that course throughout the state for us moving forward. So any teacher, we're not able to offer a blended version of that course because of different state requirements, but now all those blended supports are still in there. So teachers have the ability to customize to meet the needs of students who are going into non-traditional career fields. And so it's kind of spread throughout the organization in different ways, but that provides a good example to go into more specifics of that model of, learn and redesign that we kind of constantly go through with NCVirtual.
So impressed. That is so neat. And I'm so thankful that you all exist. And if I lived on the other side of the country, we'd be working more closely together, I'd hope. That is so neat. Oh my gosh, I'm really appreciative of your time today. Before I let the three of you loose to go do good work for students, I like to end the episodes this season by asking my guests who their favorite teacher was growing up and why. So, to end on a kind of inspiring, not that this hasn't been the whole time, but an inspiring and lighthearted, happy note. Let's start with Rachel and then Thomas and then Chris. Who was your favorite teacher, your most impactful teacher growing up? And tell us a little bit about why.
That would be fairly easy for me, Natalie. It was Miss Ann Barefoot. I initially had her for chemistry in high school. Liked her so much, I signed up and took physics under her. Liked her so much, I signed up and took chemistry 2
Oh my
under her.
goodness.
And loved her so much that I became a certified science chemistry teacher because of Miss Barefoot. She just was an amazing teacher who engaged us in so many ways. We did lots of lab experiences. She encouraged us to ask questions and to dig and to figure it out, not just to find it in a book, but to do the work to learn it. One of the coolest experiences I have had in my professional career is for the longest time as I was starting out and she had just retired from the classroom, she began working for a national publisher. And so we would at least once a year meet up and have a reunion at a national science teachers conference. So it was really cool to kind of continue to grow with her, and she continued to encourage me as I moved into the profession, kind of following her pathway.
Awesome. Ah, thank you, Miss Barefoot. We're excited. All the good work you did with Rachel and all the good work now Rachel does. Thomas, how about you?
Fairly easy as well. His name is Billy Joyner. He was my 8th grade math teacher. He was also my baseball coach. He, at that point, I think that was about the time that I decided I wanted to be a teacher as well, have an impact. He made math fun. He was math science. And so he was engaging, but he kind of cared about what was going on. It was more than just teacher student. Even at an 8th grade level, he was involved in our lives and was asking those types of questions and just engaged with it. And so that really, really resonated with me. He actually just sent me an email. He is retiring from education. So he's definitely made an impact in the community he's in. And he's definitely made an impact on me.
It's awesome. A really awesome teacher, Mr. Joyner. Thank you. Because now, Thomas, you're working with teachers as well, and you're passing on that legacy. That's so cool. All right, Chris, last but not least.
All right, and I'll go a little bit different direction. So I was always a math-minded person. I have a couple favorite math teachers that I had growing up, but I'll say one of my most influential teachers didn't come till undergrad in college. And so I had Miss Cavas-Monick. And so being a math and science minded person, English was definitely not my thing. And so I wasn't prepared for English at the college level by far. And so when I went away to the University of Charleston and walked into her class, I was ready to walk back out because I definitely wasn't prepared to do what we need to do. But she said, sit down and I'll teach you. And so she did just that. And I enrolled in her class the next semester. And so, of course, now I've gone on to earn a master's degree and write a complete dissertation, which is nothing that I would have dreamed of before. So definitely math person at heart, but that was definitely one of the most influential.
I love it. I know. I was wondering if we were going to have 3 STEM teachers or go a little variety there. That's fantastic. It's really important, I think, to celebrate the teachers we've had in our lives and the ones who have inspired us and I left a legacy through us. It's so impactful. So awesome. Thank you 3 for your time today. If listeners want to learn more about NCVirtual or about your work, where can they go?
Well, you can certainly find us on our website at ncvps.org. And we also would encourage anyone who's participating in the upcoming DLAC conference. Check us out. We have quite a few staff members that are holding sessions that will be both in person and in the virtual component. And we welcome questions from your audience and listeners. We love to talk about online learning if you haven't figured that out.
Ditto. Awesome. Well, have a great time at DLAC, and thank you again for your inspiring work that you're doing and for sharing what you're doing with us. Have a great rest of your day.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And you have a good day as well.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of SYS Presents Adventures in Online Education. Special thanks to my guests today, Dr. Rachel McBroom, Dr. Thomas Cooper III, and Dr. Chris Smith. Today we learned that virtual education can achieve its promise of providing high-quality courses and instruction across socioeconomic and geographic divides. We learned that teachers have the skills to create high-quality curriculum themselves, and that with proactive thinking and community support, a whole state can provide high-quality online education to all of its students. If you liked what you heard today, please hit subscribe and give us a rating. On Twitter, you can follow me, Natalie Conway, at AOE Natalie, and the show at SYS Presents. If you're interested in finding out more about SYS education, head to syseducation.org. This podcast wouldn't be possible without our exceptional team at SYS Education, including our talented sound engineer, Natalie Farrell, and our ever-supportive producer, Bo Neal. Thanks for listening, and remember, we can learn new things.
Thanks for listening.